One of the primary issues on the agenda for the first session of the General Assembly of the United Nations was the location of the permanent home of the UN. After many offers from different countries, the General Assembly decided to locate the United Nations headquarters in New York City, due in large part to a donation of land worth $8.5 million by John D. Rockefeller Jr., a wealthy banker from New York. The United Nations headquarters sits on 18 acres of prime New York City real estate. The UN secured an interest-free loan of $65 million from the United States government to pay for the costs. The building was completed in 19 months, and the loan was repaid to the United States government in 1982. The headquarters have been modified to accommodate the growing number of United Nations personnel and the 192 members that have since joined. Although the United Nations is in New York City, the building and the property are considered international territory. No federal, state, or local officer, whether administrative, judicial, military, or police, may enter the United Nations without special permission. The United Nations has its own firefighting and security forces, as well as its own postal system that issues United Nations stamps. Flying in front of the building are the colorful flags of the 192 United nations. In keeping with the mission of the United Nations, materials for their headquarters were selected from many lands so as to include as many cultures and peoples in the creation of the organization's home as possible. In response to the failure of the League of Nations, the member states of the United Nations set out to structure an organization that would promote opportunities for countries to discuss pressing issues. The work of the United Nations is done by its six principal organs. The General Assembly, the Security Council, an Economic and Social Council, Trustee Council, International Court of Justice, and Secretariat. The General Assembly is the international stage where countries from all regions of the world come to deliberate. Each member state has a single vote. Decisions of grave importance require a two-thirds majority to pass, just like the United States Congress. During the regular sessions of the General Assembly, member states have the opportunity to address the General Assembly about pressing international issues. When an issue arises, it is discussed in one of the Assembly's six main committees. There's the first committee, it's on disarmament and international security. There's the second committee, it's about economic and financial issues. A third committee about social, humanitarian, and cultural issues. The fourth committee is special political and decolonization. Fifth committee is administrative and budgetary. And the sixth committee is the legal committee. While decisions and recommendations made by the General Assembly are not legally binding, they carry the weight of world opinion, accompanied by the moral authority of the international community. When matters of international security become urgent and require a more forceful reaction by the international community, they are moved to the agenda of the Security Council. One of the most historic occasions in the General Assembly was the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The Declaration's 30 articles declare that all human beings are entitled to freedom without distinction based on race, color, sex, language, religion, national origin, or birth. This visionary document is morally binding, not just for member states of the United Nations, but for all people on Earth. The Declaration is one of the many treaties, conventions, and other agreements between member states that set standards or establish legal obligations on a vast number of international issues. The Convention on the Rights of the Child states that children, because of their vulnerability, require special care and protection. Other conventions in treaties address such issues as women's rights, the environment, refugees, arms and drug trafficking, endangered species, terrorism, and the exploitation of the world's oceans from overfishing. Behind many of these international legal agreements is an effort by countries to reconcile competing national interests and to protect the planet and its people. The Security Council is primarily responsible for international peace and security. The Council has 15 members, each with a single vote. There are 5 permanent members: China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, United States. Every 2 years, 10 additional members are elected by the General Assembly based on geographical location. The Security Council's duties include investigating any dispute which might lead to international conflict and making recommendations for its resolution. Another duty is authorizing the use of force in the form of peacekeepers to restore international peace and security, so the military option. Another duty of the Security Council is making recommendations to the General Assembly on the appointment of United Nations General Secretary General. Under Article 25 of the Charter, all member states of the United Nations must agree to comply with any decision made by the Security Council. The Council has the power to dispatch military observers or peacekeeping forces to enforce economic sanctions, arms embargoes, travel bans, or military action. In 1945, 5 major powers, US, China, UK, and Russia, as well as France, played important roles in the maintenance of international peace and security. At the time, it was agreed that if any of the Big Five cast negative votes on a matter, the Council would not be able to adopt the resolution. The special power is known as the right to veto. The world has changed since 1945, and there are several proposals to reform the Council, so it is more representative of new global realities. These have been there have been many proposals to include the elimination of the veto, expand the number of members that sits on the Council, and permit countries from various regions of the world to become permanent members. However, before any changes are made to the structure of the Security Council, parts of the United Nations Charter would have to be amended or changed. The Economic and Social Council is responsible for coordinating the United Nations' role in economic and social development projects worldwide. The Economic Council advises countries on how to improve education and health conditions and promote human rights and freedoms of people worldwide. It is also the primary liaison between the United Nations agencies such as UNICEF and the World Health Organization, non-governmental organizations, and main bodies of the Secretariat. The Trusteeship Council is the last one we'll talk about. When the United Nations was founded in 1945, some parts of the world, many of them colonies, lacked governments capable of making decisions for their people. These areas were placed under the protection of the Trusteeship Council and were called trust territories. Initially, there were 11 territories, mostly in Africa and the Pacific Ocean. The Trusteeship Council supervised the social advancement of the people who lived in these territories. Since the last territory, Palau, achieved self-governance in 1994, the Council has suspended operations. There's the International Court of Justice to talk about. The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The court has two primary responsibilities. First, to settle legal disputes between member states, and secondly, to provide legal advice to authorized international organs and agencies. The court is composed of 15 judges from all over the world. No two judges come from the same country. 9 judges must agree in order for a decision to be made on a particular issue or dispute. The court sits at the Peace Palace in The Hague, that's in the Netherlands, in Europe, and is in permanent session. Currently, there are 13 cases pending. Cases range from maritime disputes to border-related conflicts. Here's your discussion questions for today's lesson.